Everyone in this house hates my mother-in-law. Of course, that includes me, my husband Trevor, my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, and even my 2 sons who go to kindergarten. We all despise her. It's impossible to like someone who doesn't work, doesn't help with housework, and lives solely to gossip about others. But the person in question is oblivious to being disliked and dreams of living surrounded by the men in the family, excluding me. She's been trying desperately to get rid of me. "I'm gonna get rid of you, parasite," she said one day and burned all my belongings in the yard. The time has finally come. "Well, I'll be leaving then," I said quietly, to which she responded with glee, "Great, let's celebrate tonight. I've finally gotten rid of the parasite, and now I can live happily with my sons, Samuel and Lucas." She can enjoy her moment while it lasts. She won't be smiling for long. It's time she faced the consequences of her selfish life. A little ahead of schedule, I put my plan into action. First, everyone but my mother-in-law moved into a mansion. My name is Victoria. I'm a 35-year-old working housewife. I've been married to my husband Trevor, who's 5 years older than me, for 5 years, and we have 2 sons. I met Trevor through his father. At that time, Trevor's father was my respected boss, and one day he said to me, "Would you like to meet my son? He's a good man but doesn't have a girlfriend. I think you'd be perfect for him. What do you say?" I was surprised by the sudden proposal, but when I saw his picture, he really was a good man, so I agreed to meet him with a light heart. In person, he was even more impressive. "Are you sure you want someone like me?" I candidly asked, and he replied confidently, "If my father chose you, there's no mistake." We dated smoothly and got married 2 years later. Trevor and I registered our marriage first and then visited his family to announce our marriage. There, I witnessed a strange sight involving his mother. "Hey, now that Trevor is back, let's live here like we used to, just the 4 of us, me, your father, your brother, and Trevor," she said casually, completely ignoring me. But Trevor, without engaging in conversation with his mother, simply announced our marriage and left. I just introduced myself and said, "Nice to meet you," and that was it. Is Trevor still in his rebellious phase? Trevor was already 35 at that time. He clearly wasn't in a rebellious phase, but since Trevor didn't speak much, she interpreted things her way. Only his mother was excited about Trevor's visit. Trevor didn't even look at her or say a word. He enjoyed a lively conversation with his father, but both Trevor and his father treated his mother as if she were invisible, just as she treated me. I was shocked by the unbelievable way Trevor and his father, usually as gentle as saints, treated her. I had already heard about his mother from Trevor and his father. She had interfered with his relationships and engagements because of her excessive love for her sons. In fact, Trevor's brother had been driven to divorce and was estranged from her, as they honestly admitted. Seeing strength in me, Trevor's father had chosen me, believing I could stand up to her. I had mixed feelings but understood after hearing about her past episodes. Still, I was relieved that we didn't have to live together, and Trevor and his father promised to fully support me. If she ignored me, I could easily ignore her back. We met once at a relative's funeral, but she still ignored me. However, despite it being a funeral, she excitedly ran up to Trevor, pestering him, "Hey Trevor, when are you coming back home? Mom's lonely." I thought she was just ignoring me, but she had been bad-mouthing me to all the relatives. "She's from a single-parent home, you know. She's only after Trevor's money. People from poor backgrounds are the worst. We have to get rid of parasites like we did with my older son's ex-wife." She said this gleefully, but the relatives, understanding her nature, just smiled awkwardly. I was working, and Trevor's brother's ex-wife had also worked. But she didn't understand that she, as a stay-at-home wife, was the real parasite. I lost my father to illness when I was in high school, and my mother and I had lived strongly and resiliently together since then. So, things like this didn't faze me. Eventually, Trevor and I had our first son, Samuel, followed by our second son, Lucas. Trevor told me not to let my mother-in-law meet them, which made me feel there was some deep-rooted issue. Although we were told we didn't have to live together, we ended up moving into his family's house. Because his father had collapsed. He had been secretly sick for 5 years, but my mother-in-law knew. Trevor, who usually didn't speak to his mother, confronted her this time. "Why didn't you tell us? Would anything have changed if I had? You should be worrying about me. Who's gonna take care of the house from now on?" she retorted disappointingly. Trevor hated even talking about his mother, so he rarely mentioned her. Upon closer inquiry, I learned that Trevor's father did all the housework. Her cooking was terrible, and her cleaning and laundry were sloppy. Trevor and his brother had been helping with the housework since they were little. Finally, Trevor opened up. "She's actually my stepmother. My real mother died when I was in elementary school. Dad remarried through a matchmaker for our sake, but things went downhill from there." Apparently, Trevor's father had been very considerate of her because she married him despite his having 2 children. But she did no housework, interfered in the children's friendships, and constantly gossiped about everyone around. Out of jealousy, perhaps, she said, "We need to forget about things that are no longer here and start calling me Mom," and burned all of Trevor's real mother's photos and keepsakes in the yard. "That's why neither my brother nor I will ever forgive her." "Didn't your father think about divorcing her?" "He's filed for divorce dozens, no, hundreds of times. But she never signs and never leaves. She brazenly stays, pretending to be family." Trevor's father tried to throw her out many times, but my mother-in-law would scream for help loud enough for the neighbors to hear, bringing the police each time and forcing the family to apologize to everyone around. As a result, Trevor's father, Trevor, and his brother lived as if my mother-in-law didn't exist. Despite being so hated by her family, she either had a strong mental fortitude or a conveniently selective interpretation of events, seeing Trevor's father, Trevor, and his brother as just cool people. It's surprising how some people defy common sense. I asked Trevor if her parents could take her in. Apparently, she had bullied her daughter-in-law, Trevor's brother's wife, when she lived with them, and they were glad to be rid of her, so they didn't want her back now. This was the first time Trevor had talked so much about my mother-in-law, and he bitterly shared his unpleasant memories. Trevor couldn't hide his frustration about why only his unfortunate father had to get sick. "Dad has only about a year left. At the very least, I want to be by his side until the end. He's always worked so hard for us, and I want to do whatever I can for him. I'll go too. I'll bring the kids." Trevor, with tears in his eyes, said, "Thank you. I owed a lot to my father-in-law, both personally and professionally. Having lost my own father, I deeply understood the desire to spend as much time as possible with the loved ones you have left." With Trevor explaining everything to me, my mind was made up. Despite feeling apologetic about us moving in, my father-in-law welcomed us, saying, "It's like a dream to live with my grandchildren," as he held Samuel and Lucas on his lap with a smile. Trevor also invited his brother, and we began living together as a big family. The one who was happiest about this situation, unsurprisingly, was my mother-in-law. "It's like a dream. It's all thanks to my husband getting sick," she said without a hint of tact, and even went on to say, "How much was Dad's insurance again? Let's remodel the house and live here with me, your brother, Trevor, Samuel, and Lucas." No one bothered to correct her. No one wanted to engage in even the smallest conversation with her, so everyone just ignored her. But she didn't get discouraged and took every opportunity to badmouth me to my sons. "I have always wanted to see Samuel and Lucas, but your mom was too mean to let her." Trevor, who happened to overhear this, pulled Samuel and Lucas aside and explained, "That grandma is senile. She's sick, so don't worry about anything she says. I hate that grandma. She always says bad things about Mom." "Me too. But I love Grandpa. And I love Uncle too." Kids are honest. Samuel and Lucas had grown very attached to their grandfather and uncle, sticking to them all the time. With my busy schedule of remote work and housework, their help was invaluable. My father-in-law made it a daily routine to draw pictures of us. Of course, there wasn't a single picture of my mother-in-law. His drawings, full of warmth, were considered treasures by everyone. He lived a year longer than expected and passed away peacefully, surrounded by family. "Now I can finally see Emily again," he said with his last words, revealing his long-standing love for his first wife. My mother-in-law slammed the door loudly in anger. After my father-in-law's funeral, while everyone was still mourning, my mother-in-law was only thinking about herself. "I'm inheriting this house, so you and Trevor should renounce your inheritance. Leave all the paperwork to me." She decided unilaterally and dumped all the follow-up on Trevor. "But you're still my beloved sons, so let's live here as usual. Of course, Samuel and Lucas too. Then we'll get rid of the parasite," she said, glaring at me. She probably interpreted Trevor and his brother's silence as agreement. Having sold our previous house to move in together, she likely thought she had us trapped with the lure of a home. Never having worked a day in her life and having no intention to, my mother-in-law planned to continue leeching off Trevor and his brother. She should think carefully about who the real parasite is. We wanted to leave this house without my father-in-law as soon as possible, but certain circumstances prevented us from moving right away. Just a little more patience was required. 3 months after my father-in-law's passing, an incident occurred. We made sure someone was always at home to monitor my mother-in-law's erratic behavior. I had heard from Trevor about how she had burned photos and keepsakes of his real mother. Although I usually work from home, I was called to the office for an urgent matter that day, thinking it would be fine to leave for a short while. With the day of our release from living with her approaching, I might have let my guard down. On my way back home after finishing my work, I saw smoke rising in the distance. Fearing the worst, I rushed home to find her burning something in the yard. "What are you doing?" "I'm getting rid of you, parasite," she said gleefully to herself, poking the fire with a long stick. I glanced over and saw that it was my belongings she was burning. Everything I had brought to this house, from clothes to shoes and small items, was crackling in the fire. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that even the precious drawings my father-in-law had made for us were burning. I had placed them in my brother-in-law's room to keep them safe. I quickly retrieved the drawings, but half of them were already gone. "This is terrible! Why would you do such a thing?" For the first time, my mother-in-law, who had always ignored me, spoke directly to me. "Who's really the terrible one here? You've been leeching off Trevor's earnings and shamelessly staying in someone else's house. This is my beloved home. To protect my dear sons and grandsons, I need to get rid of pests." With a triumphant, spiteful grin, she looked at me. Suppressing the urge to hit her with all my might, I quietly said, "Then I'll leave. Well, tonight we'll celebrate. I've finally gotten rid of the parasite, and now I can live happily with my sons and Samuel and Lucas." She can rejoice for now. She won't be smiling for long. She'll face the consequences of her selfish actions. Executing my plan a bit earlier than planned, I immediately headed to the kindergarten to pick up my sons, called Trevor and his brother, and asked them to collect our belongings and the memorial altar for their father from the house. My mother-in-law seemed to have gone out to buy celebratory food, so everything went smoothly. I wasn't the only one who left. Everyone except her moved out. Actually, I had a house left to me by my father. It was too big for just my mother and me, so we had been renting it out, and the tenant had just moved out last week. That's why we couldn't move immediately. When my father-in-law collapsed 2 years ago, I suggested we live together in that house, but he had other plans, so we stayed in his house. Although there are still some things we need for our new life, it's extremely comfortable without my mother-in-law. She's probably panicking right now. Trevor's phone had been getting bombarded with calls, which he ignored. She must have found his number from his father's phone. There were hundreds of calls from an unknown number, likely hers. I decided to answer the phone at the right moment. "Hello? What? Why are you answering? This is Trevor's phone. Let me talk to Trevor." Her shouting was so loud that I had to hold the phone away from my ear, clearly sensing her anger. Trevor doesn't want to talk right now. That's ridiculous. Where are you hiding Trevor? And you took Samuel and Lucas without permission. I'm calling the police. You're asking where I'm hiding him, but Trevor is a grown man. And Samuel and Lucas are my sons. If you call the police, you'll only embarrass yourself. Just tell me where you are. Which apartment? She apparently thought we were living in an apartment. And that I had somehow kidnapped Trevor and the kids. Common sense should tell her otherwise. We had decided to end everything with her today. Well, why don't you come see for yourself? I gave her the address of our new home. And made another call. I had already asked my brother-in-law to take the boys out for the day. They adored him so much that they were more attached to him than to Trevor. Despite being usually stingy, my mother-in-law must have been desperate to see Trevor as she arrived in a taxi within 15 minutes. She rang the intercom so hard it seemed like it would break and barged into the house, shoving me aside. Upon seeing Trevor in the living room, she immediately softened and started talking rapidly. Trevor, are you okay? Thank goodness you're safe. I was so worried about you. After calming down a bit, she glanced around the room with sparkling eyes, still talking. This is an amazing mansion. Trevor, when did you buy such a grand house? It's so cruel to leave your mother behind. I need to move in right away. Oh, and we'll need to get rid of the parasite again. This is Victoria's house. Actually, it's Victoria's and her mother's house. That's impossible. She comes from a poor single-parent family. That's quite a prejudice. My father invested in real estate and left us properties and land. This house is one of them. My mother is an executive at a company. We are not the poor single-parent family you imagine. While losing my father and dealing with predatory relatives was tough, we never lived the way my mother-in-law assumed. Realizing she wouldn't accept it, I showed her the deed. Her face twisted in a mix of shock and frustration. By the way, my brother lives here too. It wasn't just Victoria who left. We all did. Why did your brother leave? Where is he? He's out with Samuel and Lucas. He said he never wants to see you again. Her anger then turned towards me. You hid my big son and my grandchildren. Not at all. Everyone left by their own choice. It's time to face reality. Unwilling to accept that she was rejected, she seemed determined to paint me as the villain. How dare you act so high and mighty? Who do you think paid for your living these past 2 years? We lived in my father-in-law's house, and I supported everyone. I paid for everyone's living expenses and my father-in-law's medical bills. That includes your living costs too. I've been unemployed for the past 2 years. Oh, and so has my brother. That's why we were always home. What? That can't be true. You were working from home, right? The company Trevor and his brother worked for didn't allow remote work. In fact, they had a lot of overtime and frequent business trips. When their father collapsed, both were considering changing jobs, worried they wouldn't have enough time with him. Since I had been working remotely since we got married and had rental income, I encouraged them to prioritize their time with their father without worrying about living expenses. I told this to my mother-in-law. You meddled unnecessarily. Dad wasn't going to make it anyway. Forcing them to quit their jobs. What about me? What am I supposed to do now? See, this is the kind of person she is. Always thinking about herself. Even though Victoria was supporting her, she never said a word of thanks. I never asked for help. That woman did it all on her own. I'm not thanking her. I never expected any thanks. But the fact is, you were supported by me. Now do you see who the real parasite is? She had no retort to my words. Her enormous pride wouldn't allow her to apologize or thank me, nor would she ever ask to stay here. Her face twisted with humiliation, hands clenched tightly, she couldn't stop fidgeting. Then, she suddenly spoke up. Trevor, you're putting up with all this because she's supporting you. You really want to live in our old house with me, right? Poor Trevor and your brother.
Are you crazy? I'm here because I love Victoria and want to live with her. And I left that house because I hate you. My brother and our sons feel the same. You're only saying that because she told you to. She's holding it over you that she supported you, planning to control you forever. Wake up.
I was speechless with disbelief. I vaguely thought she must be the type to blame the other woman if her husband or boyfriend ever cheated. Seeing her unwilling to understand or accept reality, I could grasp the struggles Trevor and his brother had faced. My mother-in-law continued.
No matter what this woman says, Trevor, your brother, and I are family. You have an obligation to support me. Don't you know? Neither my brother nor I are legally adopted by you. We're not family on paper, so we have no obligation to support you. We're not family? That's right. You always twist things to suit your narrative. Despite being told to leave many times by Dad and us, you shamelessly stayed. You shortened Dad's life. That's why neither my brother nor I will ever forgive you.
I thought she would finally give up, but she continued, even if we're not family, don't you want to live in the house filled with Dad's memories? I'll make it up to you and your brother. Trevor then asked.
Do you really think that house belongs to you?
Looking confused, she soon exploded in anger. Did you change the ownership without telling me? I told you I was going to inherit it.
No, the house is in your name as you wished. Then it's my house, right?
Yes, but it's a rental.
What? That's not possible. I was told it was a fully owned house when I got married.
She started to panic, realizing she didn't know the full story. Nobody had informed her of the details.
It's a leaseback agreement. Leaseback? Yes, it's a contract where you sell the house but can continue living there by paying rent. What? Sold? Who? Why? When?
Trevor answered her barrage of questions.
Dad sold the house. I don't know when, but I heard it became a rental when we moved in. Dad wanted to spend his final days in the house he shared with our mom, and Victoria made that possible by paying the rent. No one told me. Why? What happened to the money?
I don't know.
But maybe Dad didn't want you to have the house. Someone like you, who planned to inherit it after he died, didn't deserve it. Here's the rental contract. It's under your name, right? It's paid up until last month, so you'll need to cover the rent from this month on.
My mother-in-law was shocked, almost collapsing as she read the contract.
$4,000? I can't pay that much rent. This is a scam. It's a reasonable amount for a 5-bedroom house near a station in the city. If you can't pay, you'll have to move out. What?
This was part of my father-in-law's revenge. Before moving in, Trevor and I had been informed of his plan.
I sold the house and set up a leaseback agreement. The money goes to Victoria. Please take care of Trevor and the others. I don't need that, I have my own income. My brother and I are relying on Victoria now, but we'll work and repay her. No, it's not that. I don't want that woman to have this house. This is my way of making amends. I regret marrying her and causing Trevor and my other son so much pain. Use the money as you see fit.
He smiled, hoping we might use the money to buy a grave for him and his late wife.
After I'm gone, she'll insist on inheriting the house. Keep the leaseback a secret until the right moment. I only regret not being able to see her face when she finds out.
My father-in-law is surely watching this unfold from heaven. My mother-in-law's face brightened again as she said,
There's life insurance, right? We can use that money to buy back the house or at least cover the rent. The life insurance? Dad already canceled it. What? Why? Do you know how much it was worth?
No idea.
But having you around must have been stressful.
He probably spent it all.
Anyway, the beneficiaries were me and my brother. Actually, we had received the cancelled policy money. We had no intention of telling her. Even if Trevor and his brother received the insurance, my mother-in-law could claim some as the legal wife. She might not be savvy enough to realize this, but my father-in-law had ensured all possibilities were eliminated. Now, my mother-in-law was left with no money, no house, and no support from the sons she thought were hers. Her selfish dreams were shattered.
Do you think this is fair? What am I supposed to do now? Trevor, you're a kind boy. Please help me.
My mother was beautiful, elegant, and kind. The one who gave birth to me. You are ugly, vulgar, and mean. Don't ever call yourself my mother again. If you keep causing trouble in this house, I'll call the police. With that, my mother-in-law broke down in tears.
Do you expect me to be homeless? How can you be okay with that?
She was trying to gain sympathy now, but I was tired of it. It was the right time to proceed with my father-in-law's final request. Your husband thought about your future and arranged everything. He spoke to your brother, and they've agreed to take you back.
My brother?
Her face lit up at the mention of her big son. She really did love men. His wife, Sophia, whom you tormented so much, is happy to welcome you. It seems your parents need care, and they want you back right away.
That woman is still around.
You bullied her terribly. She even considered ending her life at one point. But she found purpose in getting revenge on you. She expanded the farm, started a business, and now makes $20 million a year. She's in full control of the household now. Sophia, her brother-in-law's wife, had suffered immensely from Sophia's bullying. Taking advantage of my brother's frequent business trips, she locked Sophia out in the freezing snow and pushed her down the stairs, causing her to miscarry. Sophia was physically and emotionally devastated. When her brother learned of this, he demanded her leave the house, calling her a useless parasite. It seems that's where my mother-in-law picked up the habit of calling others parasites. Around that time, her parents arranged a match with my father-in-law. After their marriage, he tried to send Sophia back to her family, but her brother begged him to keep her away, as his wife was just beginning to recover. Without mentioning this incident, my father-in-law maintained a relationship with them, and one day, Sophia approached him. Let's get revenge on her. By then, Sophia had expanded the family business but could no longer have children due to her miscarriage. She couldn't forgive Sophia and had learned about our family's situation, so she proposed the plan. At the time, her parents' health was failing, and they were showing signs of dementia. Since my father-in-law was already ill, he quickly agreed. He likely wanted to protect his son's futures from the clingy and the unreasonable mother. Of course, he never intended to tell her about this. I gave my mother-in-law a bright smile and said, "That's great news. You found a new host. Sophia says she'll provide one meal a day, just like you did for her. You can take care of your parents to your heart's content." "I won't do it," my mother-in-law shouted just as Sophia appeared. She had a strong build from working in the fields, and Sophia couldn't match her strength. "You don't have a choice. We're not family. I'm your employer, and you're just a worker. Understand your position. My husband has given me permission to handle you as I see fit." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. She directed the two strong men accompanying her, and they took Sophia away. "I'll never forgive you. Give me back my Trevor." Those were the last words I heard from my mother-in-law. Sophia then turned to Trevor. "I'm sorry my selfishness caused so much pain to you and your family for so long. Please live peacefully from now on," she said and looked at my father-in-law's photo before leaving. Later, Sophia told us about my mother-in-law's current situation. She's now taking care of her parents in a separate house on the property, with surveillance cameras monitoring her every move. Even if my mother-in-law complains, Sophia doesn't hold back. "Taking care of your parents is your duty. You should be grateful we're letting you stay," she tells her, and that seems to be the only time my mother-in-law quiets down. When Sophia was being tormented by my mother-in-law,
Her in-laws turned a blind eye. Given my mother-in-law's nature, she wouldn't be capable of providing proper, compassionate care, so this is also a form of revenge on the in-laws who ignored her suffering. But considering what they did, they deserve their fate. The annex where my mother-in-law and her parents live was a prefab built for caring for her grandparents. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. To prevent wandering, the door locks from the outside, and the windows have bars, making escape impossible. My mother-in-law must have known this, which is why she so vehemently refused to go. Even if she managed to escape, she wouldn't find any allies, as everyone in the area benefits from Sophia's work. In the rural area where it takes 40 minutes to walk to the nearest bus stop and without any money, escaping would be another form of hell. Once her parents' care is over, my mother-in-law will likely become the one needing care, and who knows what will happen then. I wasn't tormented by my mother-in-law as badly as Sophia was. I didn't witness the mistreatment Trevor and his brother endured during their single years. But I will never forgive her for constantly pestering my bedridden father-in-law about his life insurance and when he might die. So, I have no sympathy for her current situation. We all feel the same way. This wasn't just my revenge, but everyone's who was affected by her. The house my mother-in-law clung to so desperately has been vacated, and new tenants are already lined up. While clearing out the belongings, we found a bundle behind my father-in-law's dresser. Inside were photos of his first wife. We immediately brought them home and placed them next to his photo. With that, everything was finally over. Now I live with Trevor, our sons, my brother-in-law, and my mother. Trevor and his brother seem like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. The money we received from my father-in-law remains untouched, and although I offered to split it between Trevor and his brother, they refused, saying they're already living comfortably in this mansion and were supported even during our time living together. My brother-in-law initially planned to live alone. However, our sons cried and begged him to stay, and being very attached to them, he decided to live with us. Trevor and his brother are currently looking for a job, and my mother is trying to convince them to join her company. Regardless, we are enjoying lively and happy days together. This happy life is all thanks to my father-in-law, who brought Trevor and me together. We built a grave for him, where Trevor's real mother is also buried. I'm sure they're watching over us from heaven, happily together.
Well, from today onwards, it's your job to take care of 7 of us.
The one standing beyond the open door was my son, whom I hadn't seen for several months. Behind him were his wife and children, standing with large bags. Even though I tried to convey that it was rude to suddenly invade in such large numbers, my son seemed unfazed. His manner of pushing himself in while brushing off my protests was nothing short of terrifying. Why had my son come back? A few months ago, when I criticized my son and his wife for their extravagant spending, my son was the one who called me a greedy old hag and cut off contact. My son, much stronger than me, easily pushed open the door and entered the foyer. There's obviously not enough room for 7 people, right? So, my son extended his arms and firmly grasped my shoulders. Smiling at my wincing from pain, he said, "Once you're done with cleaning and laundry, Mom, you can sleep in the hallway. My name is Mercy, living off a pension at 75, just an ordinary woman. Before marriage, I worked vigorously at a company. Initially, work was enjoyable, and with many women around, there was an understanding of women working overtime. At that time, there was a societal trend of women entering the home upon marriage. However, the company said to me, 'You're doing great work for us, so if possible, we'd like you to stay.' What do you think? It was a fulfilling job, but my husband expressed his wish for me to become a housewife, so I became one upon marriage. I'm also quite skilled at cooking, and by adding a little extra to my usual dishes, I feel like I can make delicious meals like a pro. I've always admired spending time cooking with that extra touch. Becoming a housewife secretly made me happy, thinking, I'll have more time for my hobby of sewing. We only had one child, Neil, but I believe our life as a family of 3 was filled with happy moments. When Neil was young and in the early years of elementary school, I was delighted that he was affectionate. By the time he reached middle school, Neil entered his rebellious phase, distancing himself from me emotionally at times, but he was blessed with good friends. I've heard that the friend he became close to in middle school is still in touch with him. During high school, Neil, influenced by his friends or perhaps thinking about university, focused on his studies. My husband, while holding on to traditional beliefs, cooperatively helped with raising our child, making parenting enjoyable. Blessed with supportive mom friends around me, during times like high school entrance exams and university entrance exams, I had companions to consult with about how to respond to my child, what advice would be best, and what support would help them concentrate on studying. Since my son hadn't saved up for the wedding expenses, I covered most of the costs myself. My husband worked hard and provided for the family, so we never struggled and lived a peaceful life. My hardworking husband, both in his job and with parenting, passed away from illness 5 years ago. Now, I live alone. My income for living comes from my pension and the savings my husband left behind. Using my sewing hobby, I create items and sell them on online marketplaces, earning a small income. With a decent amount of money and no financial worries, besides my hobby, I also volunteer with friends, leading a fulfilling life. Aside from volunteering with friends, we enjoy fun days together, like going out for lunch. My son Neil is now 44 years old. He got married 17 years ago and started a family. His wife, Lisa, is 40 years old. We've known each other since a long time, and I remember she used to have a quiet demeanor back in our student days. But that image changed as our relationship grew longer. Between my sons, they have 3 children. Currently, there's a 14-year-old grandchild, followed by 10 and 8-year-olds. When the grandchildren were small, my son and his wife never really demanded much, and our relationship was good. To ensure I didn't treat her like an unwelcome mother-in-law, I refrained from sudden visits and gave money for celebrations, allowing her to buy whatever she liked. Thanks to that, I thought we maintained a good relationship while keeping a reasonable distance. However, recently, the situation has changed drastically. My daughter-in-law has started demanding gifts for the grandchildren every week and asking for expensive dinners at fancy restaurants almost regularly. While suggesting going out to eat, they don't even make a gesture of taking out their wallets. What's more, they always insist on going to expensive restaurants every single time. But if it were just about the meals, it would have been tolerable. Seeing my grandchildren happily enjoying their food with smiles on their faces made me happy too. Gradually, Lisa started demanding ridiculously expensive accessories that even middle schoolers wouldn't wear. I've known Lisa since my son's high school days, so I know her from way back. During her student days, Lisa was very quiet, neither standing out nor causing any trouble. To see her become so brazen now, I can't help but sigh and think that I misjudged her. She wasn't originally rude, but the moment she felt she could say anything to us, she became domineering. As our relatives got to know her true nature, we gradually distanced ourselves from her. The only reason we still associate with them is that they all have strong personalities. Lisa, who decided I was easy to manipulate, started demanding rings, necklaces, branded wallets, and bags. I once confronted her, asking, "Why do you need such expensive items? These are things only you will use, right?" She insisted that everything was for the children. Starting from the outfit for elementary school PTA meeting to the necessary clothes for class visits. "These clothes can only go with designer name bags," she'd say. But I don't have the luxury to buy designer name bags just for such reasons. When I ignored her requests and brushed them off, she stopped demanding further. Instead, she started aiming for things that were difficult to refuse. She would intrude while I was preparing dinner and say, "Could you make some dishes for our home too?" If I declined, she'd say, "Well, anything will do," and help herself to the fridge, taking away leftovers or just the packs of meat I had recently bought. Strongly trying to stop them, they just laugh it off and say thanks a lot while waving their arms, and then they just leave on their own. Recent behavior of my daughter-in-law makes me wonder if it's normal for her to do such things. While it's common to hear about daughters-in-law being bullied in mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, is it normal for me, as a mother-in-law, to be so exhausted? Suddenly visiting our home and then demanding meals for the whole family, how audacious. But despite that, they never come for summer vacation or Christmas. During Christmas, they ask for expensive gifts for the grandchildren, gorge on holiday dishes, and then leave without even greeting other relatives. No matter how many times I've warned them, they just brush it off, like one summer. I didn't bring enough spending money for kids this year, so I'm asking for it for all the kids. When I confronted them strongly, Neil just looked at me with a sigh, even clicked his tongue.
To the granny living alone, who took the time to visit and spend time with the grandkids, what's with that tone? Well, forget it then, I won't contact this unreasonable granny anymore. Who's being unreasonable here? Fine, I won't contact you guys either. Don't ever come back.
Lisa didn't even look at us and quickly left with the children. Since then, there haven't been as many frequent phone calls or sudden visits. After that, I got even busier with my hobby of sewing and volunteering, and days without involvement with my son continued. Blessed with friends around, we still had enjoyable and busy days, like regularly going out for lunch. I've stopped contacting my son, and peaceful and calm times have passed. Continuing with my hobby of sewing and maintaining the same frequency of volunteering and lunch with friends, I had a moderately stimulating life, and those days were happy. During volunteering, people would say, "Thanks a lot, Mercy," acknowledging me, which made me very happy. I was originally blessed with many friends and a sociable personality. So it became a daily occurrence for my cell phone to ring with messages from friends. When an email came with a ping, signaling another invitation, and the content was always gentle, I couldn't help but smile. About 3 years into our estrangement, the landline at home rang after a long time. The caller was my son. I immediately blocked his number on my cell phone, but I didn't know how to do that with the landline. Until then, we hadn't received any contact, so I wondered what could be happening now. Answering the phone, I heard my son's voice saying, "Hello, Mom?" Then I faintly heard my daughter-in-law asking from the other end, "Did you get through to my mother?" Apparently, my son and his wife were calling together. Neil didn't ask how I was or even say it had been a while. "I need money," he said without any remorse, just laughing. As I was about to hang up in disbelief, I heard Neil's sighing voice. "Actually, Mom, I got fired from my job."
What?
Reacting like that probably wasn't good. Neil must have felt like I was listening because he started rambling quickly. "I had a little health issue, and I made some mistakes during that time. I ended up making some pretty big mistakes, and they told me to take responsibility. So, without even a farewell party, I got fired."
I see. That must have been tough. Hang in there.
Honestly, I couldn't find any words other than "so what?" I can almost predict what my son will say next after losing his job and asking for money. As I was about to abruptly end the conversation and hang up, Neil's desperate voice stopped me. Neil himself seemed to have never expected to be lent money. "If money's a problem, then let's live together again."
What?
Mom, think about it. You, me, and the adorable grandkids can live happily together. We'll save on rent. Isn't this what they call mutual support? I'll be in touch again, and I'll need you to clean the house.
Don't be ridiculous. There's no way I could be happy living with you and the grandkids. You're the one who said you wanted to sever ties with me as your mother, and now you're shamelessly flipping the script because you're in trouble. You should be relying on Lisa. Don't count on me.
Unable to stay silent in the face of such selfishness, I raised my voice for the first time in a while. Then, from a distance, I could hear my daughter-in-law's voice. "I'm already working full-time. But even with 3 kids, we can't make ends meet, so I want to rely on you, mother-in-law. Don't you have any love for your son and grandchildren?"
No, I don't. Living with you would just mean being treated like a maid and having my money drained. I refuse to live together or provide any financial assistance. Don't contact me again.
I slammed the receiver down with a heavy sigh, but the phone immediately started ringing again. Fed up with the incessant ringing, I picked up the receiver between incoming calls. While it meant missing other calls, those with real business would call my cell phone. However, the calls from my son and his wife wouldn't stop. When I put the phone back in the receiver's hands to keep it up, I get a call at a moment's notice. Growing tired of ignoring them, I reached out to a close friend. Then, on a whim, I called my close businessman friend on my cell phone. Hello? Could you tell me how to block calls on a landline? Finally restoring peace, 3 months passed by. The house was mostly tidy, so I was making drawstring patches with my sewing. Suddenly, ding-dong went the doorbell. It was unusual for the doorbell to ring at an unplanned time, so I glanced at the monitor showing the front door. There, I saw the faces of my son and his wife. All that crossed my mind was a bad feeling. If my son and his family come inside, they'll just get in the way. Thinking to shoo them away, I said, "I'm busy right now. Please go home." But my son said, "Don't say that. We've come all this way. We have something important to discuss. Please hear us out," as he gestured towards the back. Not only my son's family but also Lisa's parents were there. My son, his wife, 3 grandchildren, and Lisa's parents, a total of 7 people, came barging in. And they all had carry-on bags and even large luggage with them. It would be awkward to send away not just my son's family but also Lisa's parents. If I were to turn away guests carrying such large luggage, and if there were any argument at the doorstep, I'd be conscious of the neighbors' gaze. Honestly, I didn't want to let them into the house, but reluctantly, I decided to let them into the guest room. I directed my son, his wife, and Lisa's parents to the guest room while the grandchildren were entertained upstairs. I could hear the grandchildren giggling and saying, "This room is so big." Without consulting me at all, my son blurted out, "Mom, let's live together. Look, we've even brought our stuff," as he gestured at the luggage. Instinctively, I said, "Living together is out of the question. Take your things and go home." But such a refusal didn't deter my son. He said, "Mom, we're trying to be good children by living together. We want to give you the joy of taking care of your grandchildren in your old age. Isn't that being filial? Me taking care of you?" in a condescending tone. With a sigh of exasperation, I said, "Listen, as you know, I'm 75 years old. It's impossible for me, at my age, to take care of grandchildren." I was disillusioned by how, despite firmly declining over the phone, it seemed as if it never happened. Relying on a son who only thinks of himself is honestly just unnecessary meddling. Mercy, Neil's got a point. Living together would be easier for you too. You'd be happy seeing your grandkids every day, they insisted. The thought of living with my son's family made me shudder at how much money I would be drained of and how much effort I would have to put in. Even Lisa chimed in, "Considering your age, Mercy, it would be better for you to live with us. You'll have the joy of spending time with your cute grandkids." I had barely spoken to Lisa's parents since our wedding, let alone seen them. Lisa's parents seemed to spoil her as an only child, and she, in turn, seemed to have been raised with that skewed parental affection. Now even Lisa's parents chimed in, saying, "Hey, Mercy, let's cooperate since we're all getting older." Truly typical of Lisa's parents. They must have had a significant influence on her personality. Despite not knowing what kind of life they led, they seemed insistent on echoing Lisa's words. Perhaps feeling empowered by their numbers, Neil joked, "Being the one to give our dear old mom the joy of caring for a lively family in her short twilight years makes me the model son, right?" I couldn't help but wonder if Neil and Lisa were trying to repay me for what I'd done for them all these years. It infuriated me how they seemed to forget that I had been the one covering the expenses for the grandkids, using my money as if it were limitless, all in the name of because Lisa wants it or because Neil needs it. And Lisa's parents seemed to back her every word. "Hey Mercy, our Lisa is a smart girl. Let's go along with what Lisa says," they said, smiling too sweetly. That overly sweet smile started to give me an uneasy feeling. So, I've made sure to avoid getting involved with Lisa's parents. It's precisely because we haven't met since the wedding that their audacity to intervene so boldly now leaves me not just bewildered but feeling downright brazen. Lisa's parents had quite the nerve. "Mom, we're here to stay, and we're going to live together. You'll be happy. Starting today, we'll be living in this house," my son said, grinning. He then continued, "We need your room, so from today, you'll be sleeping in the hallway," he said, dismissing me. To add insult to injury, his wife Lisa joined in with a thin smile, saying, "Please take care of us, mother-in-law." I didn't want to be manipulated any further by my son's family or Lisa's parents. With that thought in mind, I pushed past them and returned to my room upstairs. In just a few minutes, I was ready to leave, carrying my suitcase downstairs, much to the surprise of my son's family and Lisa's parents. "I'm leaving, so do as you please," I said, leaving my son speechless. Neil asked, "But what about the household chores here?" And Lisa panicked, "Yes, exactly, I thought I'd finally be free from chores." Upon hearing those words, I realized they intended to treat me like a maid. The audacity of Neil, who had been fired and had no job, and Lisa, who couldn't cover the family's living expenses with just her part-time job, left me speechless. And Lisa's parents, who came along as a package deal, were clearly too much to handle. I told my son and his wife, "I've already sold this house because managing it alone became too difficult. If you want to live here, you'll need to buy it back." My son and his wife seemed puzzled by what I was saying. Continuing, I said, "Originally, I planned to move from this house and have been preparing for it for the past 3 months." To which my son replied, "But there are still things in this guest room." I continued, "We originally planned to move out of this house and had been preparing for 3 months, to which my son replied, "You have all your things in this guest room." Well, those were meant to be disposed of last. Most of the things here were unnecessary for the new house. What wasn't needed was naturally discarded. What was necessary, I took to the new house, I explained. "If Neil and you want to live here, you'll have to buy back this house." "Well, since it was well maintained and close to the station, it won't be cheap," I added. Since the guest room only had a low table and simple interior, my son didn't seem to notice at all. I had arranged for the removal company to take away all the items in the guest room once I had finished unpacking. So there were only reception items in the guest room. Then the son and his wife came to me and said, "Mom, I'm your precious son. Aren't the kids cute grandchildren to you?" and pleaded with tears. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. To Neil, I said, "My dear sons disappeared 3 years ago. Why are you telling me this now? You should just go back to your home. I'm not obliged to take care of a 44-year-old grown-up son now." Upon hearing that, the son said, "We've already canceled the apartment we were living in. Because without a job, we can't pay the rent. Life is tough with Lisa's income. We have no choice but to rely on you, Mom." Even if they say that, I'm not obliged to support not only my son's family but also Lisa's parents. To my son's words, I retorted, "What are you talking about? It's fine if you find a job, and if Lisa continues her full-time job, you can manage your life. Instead of making excuses for being unemployed, go and find a job. You're the breadwinner, Neil, it's up to you. My child-rearing days are over. There's no obligation to support Neil now." My son also said, "Maybe because I can't find a job right away, you think I'm asking for your help," he said, angry. "Well then, why don't you ask Lisa's parents for help? They are understanding people for Lisa, and it would be easier for Neil to live with them," I said. Lisa said, "Our parents sold their house and came here. We have nowhere else to go. As for me," I said, "this house is no longer mine. If you want it, you'll have to go to a real estate agent and buy it." Seeing the situation of my sons, I thought they really had nowhere else to go. Well, it seems my son and his wife have no home to return to. However, this is not a home for Neil either. I can only say I'm amazed at my son and his wife. I was shocked to realize that they really thought they could live with me without my consent. It's outrageous that Lisa's parents are also coming to live in my house, along with my son and his wife. And then, Lisa's parents also said, if you're also a parent, isn't it natural to take care of your son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren? How shameless can Lisa's parents be? But just because of that, I'm not obligated to take care of Lisa's parents. Besides, if you're also parents, why don't you take care of your daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren? Moreover, Neil and I cut ties 3 years ago. I consider my son already dead. So, I don't want to be relied on now. This house is already sold, and the next one is a one-room apartment. There's no space for you, I said sarcastically and bitterly. Even though I have a volunteering spirit, my heart is not so big as to support my estranged son and his wife. I'm helpless as long as I don't have a home. And for me, living on a pension, there's nothing I can do for Neil and his family. I'm too preoccupied with my own retirement plans. Certainly, our longtime home holds many memories with my husband. Even though it was a better time than now, how hard my husband worked to buy this house. And not only my husband, but also many cherished memories with Neil. Now they are nostalgic memories that bring tears to my eyes. Is it irresponsible as a parent to disown the only son we raised with care? But Neil is already over 40, married, and has 3 children. If parents still have responsibility even in such a case, then surely I must have been wrong in my child-rearing. While my heart aches heavily, Neil and his wife are blaming each other. It seems no one had anticipated that I would sell this house under any circumstance. Indeed, it's risky for me, in my 70s, to sell a fully paid-off house. Honestly, if my relationship with Neil and his family hadn't deteriorated, I wouldn't have done such a thing. Seemingly forgetting about me entirely, both Lisa and her parents were furious at their son-in-law Neil. It's Neil's fault for lying, all the blame lies with Neil, said Lisa's parents, angry. Lisa was furious, saying, didn't you confirm with Dad that we would never sell the house full of his memories? Isn't the plan ruined now? Actually, the landlord of the apartment where my son and his wife lived was a very close friend of mine from a long time ago. Knowing that the landlord of Neil's apartment was a friend, I had been curious since Neil mentioned living together 3 months ago, so I decided to give my friend a call. What I heard from my friend was that, actually, my son had been discussing giving up the apartment for the past 4 months. To be honest, I was dumbfounded by my son's actions, but I was glad to know about their plans beforehand. Furthermore, I learned from my friend, who is also the landlord, that my son had said, I want to live with Mom and let her take care of the kids a little. I want to take care of her while she's still healthy. Knowing this, I prepared various alternatives to avoid living with my son and his family. At my current age of 75, I simply don't have the energy to take care of my endlessly energetic children. And I can foresee being burdened with household chores when my son and his wife come over. Not only that, but I also felt a sense of crisis that if we lived together, I would not only be responsible for taking care of my son and his family but also be financially exploited as their ATM. For about a week, I thought about what kind of environment would be comfortable for me to live in. I considered whether I could live happily while considering my physical capabilities. This house is too big for me to manage living alone. I'm still struggling to manage it even now. After much consideration, I decided to sell this house and move into residential facility for elderly. Since the senior living facility is not as spacious as a standalone house, I had to move out the necessary items. I needed to dispose of things that wouldn't fit into the senior living facility, but with my wide circle of friends, it was easy. I sold items such as furniture, clothes, antiques, and even many books left behind by my late husband to secondhand stores. I donated everything I hadn't used in years and items suitable for the volunteer facilities bazaar, which helped with the organization. I went to the city office and obtained the necessary paperwork for the move and received information about what was needed. I completed most of the moving procedures and preparations 4 days ago. As I finished the remaining procedures for electricity, gas, water, etc., It was a nostalgic moment when I was at the beloved house. Just as I was about to leave the house after bidding it farewell, my son showed up. As I was leaving the house, my grandchildren, who had been playing upstairs, seemed to have overheard my conversation with my son and peeked their heads out. Encouraged by their parents' looks, my grandchildren, especially the 14-year-old, said, "Grandma, abandoning us and Dad like this is heartless." Then he continued, "Grandma should live with us since she's all alone. And she should give all her money to Dad and Mom." Hearing this, my grandchildren, ages 10 and 7, said, "That's right. That's right," and they said it as if their son and his wife had been well educated. Listening to my grandchildren's comments, I couldn't help but wonder where I went wrong in raising my son. However, my choices regarding Neil and Lisa were mine to make. Still, seeing my grandchildren's reactions, I knew they would face challenges in the future, but it was beyond my control and knowledge. In an attempt to reason with my grandchildren, I suggested, "Why don't you ask Lisa's parents for help? There's no need for me to be involved." My son argued, "Lisa's parents have no savings, and they barely scrape by on their pensions. It's impossible for them. Having our family here would ensure you have a good life, Mom." I sighed in exasperation. Neil is an adult. He should find a job while Lisa works part-time. If Lisa works, she could rent an apartment in her name. Neil's old landlord is willing to keep the apartment vacant for a while since we won't be living here. If Lisa's part-time job and Neil's unemployment can secure the house loan, then you can buy back the house, I advised. After leaving the house, I contacted a real estate agent. At my age, I just want to live within my means. Subsequently, it seems my son's family tried to reclaim the house I sold. It seems Neil tried to repurchase the house, which holds memories for him, by visiting a real estate agency. He provided his former family's address and said, "I want to buy this property. Since it's a significant purchase, there's a loan assessment involved." Unfortunately, it seems the loan application, based solely on Lisa's part-time job, didn't pass. With a son who's unemployed, they couldn't even discuss a loan. The house, with its good condition and location, was too expensive to buy back, and it seems Neil's budget couldn't keep up, making it impossible to purchase it with a loan over their budget. Indeed, it was too expensive for an unemployed son and a wife with a part-time job. They persuaded the landlord of the apartment where the family previously lived, accommodating a total of 7 people, including Lisa's parents. While the landlord secured his income, he expressed concerns about avoiding any issues, stating, "Neighborhood disputes are the most troublesome." Despite living on the landlord's goodwill, the apartment feels cramped for 7 people, especially with young children, causing considerable stress. Furthermore, living in a small space with Lisa's parents adds even more stress, leading to frustration in their daily lives. A friend who lives near Neil's apartment informed me that Neil and Lisa are visibly struggling. Although Neil found a full-time job, I heard that his lack of qualifications results in a meager salary. With the money from selling the house, the savings my husband left, and my monthly pension, I can afford a reasonably good elderly-friendly apartment. I enjoy my hobbies like sewing, volunteering, and dining with friends, leading a content life. The environment hasn't changed much, and I feel peaceful and happy. Joining a gateball club after moving to the senior apartment has brought me more enjoyable moments than before. Having more friends from the gateball club makes each day enjoyable. Additionally, I've formed a close bond with a gentleman, adding excitement to my life, making each day feel fresh. I am not thinking of getting married now, but it has been a happy time for me to be of service to someone else. I was happy to be having a good time with someone who is good to me. I hope I can continue to be as energetic and happy as I am now.
Wait a minute. That's too sudden. You like this, don't you? She wouldn't do this for you. Don't say that, sis. Call me by my name, like you always do.
I was standing in front of the bedroom door. It dawned on me right then that my husband's lover was my own sister. A rage boiled within me, and I pinched my hand to calm the urge to burst in.
I need to keep my cool.
I decided to pull out my smartphone and start recording the conversation. Never would I have guessed that she was the other woman. I realized something was off when I got home.
I'm home.
There was a pair of women's shoes at the entrance that I didn't recognize. I instantly knew he had brought a woman home. Hearing voices from the bedroom upstairs, I moved quickly to the door. Their voices were loud enough to fill the house, indicating they were still enjoying themselves.
But why did you choose this house today?
Because it's more thrilling, isn't it?
I guess so, but we usually meet at our parents' place.
We were careful not to get caught before. Well, she is so clueless she never noticed.
You're right about that. She'd never imagine us doing this.
Such a fool. Now I understood why I hadn't noticed their affair. They had been meeting secretly at our parents' house. Still, I continued to record, thinking this would serve as evidence. I wondered what our parents would think upon hearing this. It was the only way to keep my sanity. I considered confronting them, but my feet wouldn't move. Entering the room meant witnessing them in the act. Something I instinctively didn't want to see.
Hey, when are you going to give me a child?
No, that would be bad. Your husband would find out.
It'll be fine. If you sleep with him later, he won't suspect a thing. He's so oblivious.
What a terrible wife. Not as bad as you.
Listening to their conversation made my head ache and brought on nausea. I was at my limit. I decided to call out to my husband.
Where are you?
Realizing my presence, they panicked, and I heard the sound of a window opening. They probably tried to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst decision they could make. Because, of all days, it was heavily snowing today. Well, that was a mistake. I slowly entered the room. Clothes were scattered all over. They had gone outside completely naked. Looking out, I saw them trying to hide at the edge, curled up small. I immediately locked the door. Now, I was thinking about what kind of punishment to give them. I never thought I'd be this thrilled. My name is Emma, I'm 34 years old and I work in sales at a local company. I lived with my husband, Tom, who is 3 years older than me. I met Tom while on a sales visit. In my mid-20s, I had just changed jobs and was still getting used to the work. I remember how kindly he treated me, even then.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Keep up the good work. Yes.
At that time, I just thought he was a nice person. It took some time before we met again, but it turned out to be a fateful encounter. I have an older sister named Amelia, and it turned out that Tom was one of her classmates in both high school and college. Amelia had gotten married 3 years ago, and Tom was one of the attendees at her wedding.
Do you remember me? From the sales visit.
Right. Who would have thought we'd meet here?
Excuse me, but how do you know my sister? Amelia and I were classmates in high school and college. I see.
As we chatted amiably, the day's main character, my sister, came over.
Huh? You two know each other?
Well, from work. No, it wasn't any trouble. But thanks to you, I managed to secure a contract. That must have been because of your own skills.
As this back and forth continued, my sister began to laugh.
What's so funny? Just thinking you two seem to get along pretty well. Don't tease me. I'm quite serious, actually.
Thanks to my sister's mediation, Tom and I exchanged contact information. However, my sister can be quite pushy, so I thought Tom might have been bothered by it. But about a week after exchanging contacts, he called.
Hello? Sorry for calling out of the blue.
It's okay. What's up?
What is it? How about we go out for dinner sometime? Yes, sure.
I found myself agreeing reflexively.
I'll call you back then.
And with that, the call ended. I wasn't opposed to the idea, but it was too late to decline. To be honest, I didn't have much experience with romance and didn't know what to do. It was just dinner, but I was still nervous. At that time, I was still living at my parents' house, so I decided to consult with my sister. Even after getting married, she wanted to stay living with our parents, so she remained at home.
Wow, you got asked out. That's great. No, it's not about being great. I have no experience with this kind of thing. Then, you did the right thing by coming to me for advice.
My sister Amelia has always been popular. During our school days, she brought various guys home. I thought I could get some good advice from her, but that was a mistake. Even though she had calmed down after becoming an adult, she enjoyed forcing her opinions on me, the more introverted one. And how many times that made me cry.
Emma, just go with the flow. With me around, you have nothing to worry about.
So, what should I do?
Well, how about flirting a bit? Huh? Tom is weak for that kind of thing. Wait. I'm just going to have dinner. What are you saying? It won't just end with dinner.
And so, Amelia kept giving off-target advice. And the problem wasn't just her. Our parents doted on Amelia, so in a way, she did whatever she wanted. They preferred her, who got easily flattered, over the hard-to-handle me. I really wanted to move out right after graduating college, but they wouldn't allow it. They wanted to keep me close, even though they weren't particularly interested. And then the day of the dinner came.
Good luck.
Okay, I'm off.
I think the dinner went well, ultimately. It was a lot more enjoyable than feeling cramped at home.
If it's okay with you, could we meet again?
If you're fine with someone like me, please. That's great. I'm not very used to women, you know. If you say that, I'm even less used to men. No, I'm definitely less experienced. No, it's me.
While we were having this exchange, we ended up laughing together. It had been a long time since I had so much fun. It was only natural for us, gradually getting closer, to start dating. However, Amelia wasn't pleased about it. Despite having egged me on so much.
What? You're really dating? Yes, but I never thought you'd actually date. Did you follow my advice? Of course not. How did this happen?
The reason behind Amelia's failure to stir things up would come from an unexpected person.
Really? Is that so?
That person was Samuel, Amelia's husband.
Yeah. It's true. You know I met Amelia in college, right? Yes, I've heard from my sister. I became good friends with Tom then. It seems he liked her since high school but never got a chance since Tom had a girlfriend at the time. But why are you telling me this? I overheard you talking the other day. But, you know, she's not all bad.
My brother-in-law, Samuel, had a somewhat sad look on his face. He truly cared about Amelia. Yet, Amelia was still obsessing over a man she liked in the past. And this situation was deeper and more serious than I had thought, leading to unbelievable circumstances. We started dating without issues, but Amelia began to constantly check on my activities. Her behavior was abnormal, coming to my room and not leaving until she heard an answer that satisfied her.
So, what else?
Well, when you say what else, I don't know what you mean. Like, for example, going to a hotel or something. I don't know about that.
This was my little act of rebellion. After that, Amelia calmed down. A year had passed since Tom and I started dating. On my birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you.
This is my birthday present for you.
What is it?
Inside the small box was a beautiful ring.
Is this? I want you to marry me.
I'm so happy. Please, take good care of me. I will make you happy.
I was over the moon when I accepted the proposal. Not just because I would be with Tom, but also because I could finally leave my parents' house. We kept our excitement in check and went to greet both families. Tom's parents welcomed us more warmly than I had expected. The problem was my family.
So, Emma is getting married. I welcome Tom. Thank you.
Even my parents, who had not been very interested in me, seemed genuinely happy. But Amelia couldn't keep quiet.
What? You're not going to live here? Amelia, what are you saying? You guys live together. We don't have any extra rooms, and that's just not possible. Then we could remodel or something. There are plenty of ways. Don't be unreasonable. We can't do that.
Amelia was unusually anxious. Well, this was part of my plan. After that, Amelia desperately tried to keep me in the house.
Enough already. It's not our place to say anything. Stay out of this. You.
Samuel seemed taken aback by Amelia's antics.
Anyway, we're going to look for a house of our own. Right? Yeah, that's right. So, we're going to look for a house of our own. If you two have decided, then that's what you should do. Thank you.
I'll never forget the look of frustration on Amelia's face when I left home. Now that I could leave my parents' house, I found some peace for a while. Though it was in the next city, we decided to rent a house for a bargain. I never imagined being with the person I love could bring so much happiness. Even though we lived apart, we would gather at my parents' house for the holidays and New Year's. It was just a few months, but I had never been away from home for so long, so I felt a bit nervous.
I'm home. Welcome back. You're home. Yeah. Where's Amelia? She went shopping. Mother-in-law, it's been a while. Tom, you look well. Come in.
Sitting on the living room sofa, they brought out an abundance of snacks.
We can't eat all this. Well, it's been a while. But it's only been a few months. Don't be shy.
I hadn't expected such a warm welcome since Amelia was always the priority. Then, Amelia and Samuel returned from shopping.
Emma, you're here. It's been a while.
I greeted them, but Amelia ignored me and went straight to the kitchen.
Tom, long time no see. Gained some weight? No, Emma's cooking is just too good. That's good to hear. You look happy. Thanks to you.
The family gathered, enjoying tea and conversation. Normally, Amelia was talkative, but she was quiet today. After about an hour, my mother noticed something.
By the way, did you buy the usual sweets from the store in front of the station?
I forgot.
Really, be more careful. But it's not like we need. What are you saying? It's a tradition. What should we do? Can we still make it if we go now?
Then, Tom offered to go.
I'll go. We came by car today. But that's too much trouble. No, please, let me do this. Sorry, I'll be back soon. Okay.
As Tom was getting ready, Amelia insisted on going with him.
It's my fault for forgetting, and Tom might not know what to buy. Let's go.
Amelia hurried out, pulling Tom by the arm. Seeing them leave, my father let out a heavy sigh.
What's wrong?
Lately, something seems off.
She's very forgetful, and overall, she seems to lack motivation.
Even my sister Amelia, who used to be doted upon so much, now seems to be treated as a nuisance. My brother-in-law, Samuel, also seemed a bit worn out. It means that the roles between my sister and me had reversed since I moved out. An awkward silence followed. It's only about a 10-minute drive to the station. Yet, it was taking too long. My mother was the first to notice.
It's taking unusually long, isn't it?
Indeed. It's been over an hour now. An indescribable anxiety hit me. Eventually, they returned home 30 minutes later.
You took your time. The roads were a bit congested. Did you get what you went for?
We did. Amelia handed over the bag she had brought back. However, my mother stopped moving as she looked inside.
What's this? That's what we were asked to get. Where did you go? This is completely different. I understand Tom might not know, but you were with him. Never mind.
My mother looked tired.
It doesn't matter anyway.
I could hear her mutter under her breath. Moreover, upon closer inspection, Amelia's hair was more disheveled than before she left. I observed my sister carefully. It seemed Samuel did the same. Our eyes met briefly. It felt like he wanted to say something to me.
What are you even doing?
Despite the family gathering, the atmosphere couldn't be worse. Why did it have to turn out like this? Thus, the holiday passed in an awkward atmosphere. Returning home, I felt all the accumulated tiredness surge at once. I ended up falling asleep on the sofa, only to be awakened by Tom talking on the phone.
It's fine. It won't be found out.
I called out to Tom.
Who are you talking to?
Tom looked startled and then hung up the phone. Coming over to me.
Did you wake up? Who was that?
A colleague from work.
That sounded quite friendly for a colleague.
As I pressed on, I could sense him getting increasingly irritated.
Lying won't get you anywhere. What do you want to say?
Nothing. Thinking we were getting nowhere, I tried to end the conversation, but Tom wouldn't let go of my arm.
Do you doubt me? What is it?
Tom, usually seen as gentle, had a look in his eyes like he was possessed by something.
It hurts. Let go. Then will you stop doubting me? I'll do as you say.
Finally, he let go of my arm. When I looked at my arm, the mark was still clearly visible. From that moment, I began to fear Tom. 2 months later, I was on my way to the hospital after a call from my mother. My father had missed a step on the stairs at home and fractured his bone.
Are you okay?
Yeah, somehow.
You missed a step?
Really did something stupid. My father would be discharged from the hospital in a few months, but he would need family support at home until he fully recovered. I felt relieved because Samuel was with us, but unfortunately, he was scheduled for a business trip for 2 months. That day, the family gathered at the house.
I'm sorry to leave the house at such a time.
Well, it can't be helped.
Don't worry about me and just do your best.
Yes. But what should we do? My back is also bad.
Then, I will.
Tom interrupted, offering to take care of my father himself.
I'll take care of Dad.
Really?
You have work too. It must be hard, right?
I can't come every day, but I can make it on weekends.
But you're newlyweds, aren't you?
Emma is okay with it, right? Having a man around is better. Let's do it this way.
But, do you not care what happens to Dad?
I didn't say that.
Seeing that we were not getting anywhere, I reluctantly accepted Tom's offer. Unaware it was the beginning of the worst scenario. From then on, Tom would head to my parents' house every Saturday. At the same time, I started noticing a sweet scent on Tom. I didn't miss it.
Doesn't it smell sweet?
Do you think so?
Like perfume?
Perfume!
I could tell that Tom's face contorted. I was certain he was hiding something. I kept pressing with questions.
But I feel like I've smelled it somewhere before.
Where was it? I asked deliberately.
It's probably your imagination.
Really?
You don't know? You're being persistent.
I don't know anything about women's perfume.
I didn't miss his statement.
Nobody said anything about it being women's.
How did you know?
Most sweet-smelling stuff is for women, right?
It was a weak excuse.
Tell me what you know.
In that moment, something whizzed past my face. I hesitantly looked behind me. There, a mug lay shattered in pieces.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I sat down abruptly on the spot. It didn't hit me, but the thought of what could have happened made my hands tremble uncontrollably.
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a reflex.
I didn't know how to respond. I was reminded of the fear I had felt before. From that moment on, I felt my life was in danger and couldn't confront Tom as strongly as I wanted. My state of mind was reset by a phone call. My father's condition improved, and though it was still awkward, he could walk without crutches. I found out during a phone call.
How are you feeling?
Much better.
That's good to hear. By the way, how's Tom?
He's been a big help. Very considerate.
Hearing that brought me a bit of relief.
Right. Samuel wants your contact info. Is it okay to give it to him? That's fine. But why?
We hadn't exchanged contact information before. Simply, there hadn't been an opportunity. The call from my brother-in-law came that night.
Sorry for calling out of the blue. It's fine. Aren't you coming back soon? Yeah. In about 2 weeks, I guess. I see. About why I asked for your contact.
He began to explain.
What do you mean?
I've been concerned for a while. I couldn't say it until now. To be honest, I've been concerned too.
Emma, you felt that way too, huh?
I'm sorry. But what should we do?
That's exactly it. Then, I'll also be cautious about both of them.
I should be the one doing it, but I can't be there.
I'll let you know immediately if I find out anything. Sorry. Thank you.
I felt a bit relieved knowing my brother-in-law, Samuel, shared my concerns. We couldn't just do nothing. So, I decided to investigate Tom's detailed actions. I quickly arranged for someone to look into it and just had to wait for the results. I wanted to sort things out before Samuel returned, not just for my sake. What do you mean by that? I had arranged for a week-long investigation, but it turned up nothing suspicious. During the weekdays, Tom went to work and came back as usual. On weekends, he would go to my father's house from morning till night as part of his routine. I shared these facts with Samuel.
So, that was it. Was it just a misunderstanding?
Maybe.
It should be a relief that nothing was wrong, but it still feels odd. I get it. It's like an incomplete feeling, isn't it? Maybe because we doubted him from the start.
We decided to carry on with our normal lives, relieved that nothing had happened. There was 1 week left until Samuel's return. 2 days later, my father was able to do things on his own, marking the end of Tom's support.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
You seem down.
Not really. His words and expression were mismatched. And so, a week passed without any change. On Saturday at noon, I got a call from my parents.
We hate to ask, but can you come over now? I can, but what's up? There's something we need your help with. Okay, I understand.
I quickly told Tom about it.
My parents asked me to come over, so I'll be heading out. Oh, really? Yeah.
Got it. Take your time. Okay.
I thought he seemed a bit too pleased. There was a forecast for heavy snow today.
I wish they hadn't asked me to come over on such a day.
When I arrived at my parents' house, both of them greeted me together.
It's cold. So, what's up? Well, first, just sit down.
Then, it was endless small talk.
By the way, where's Amelia? Amelia went out before you arrived. Something about meeting a friend.
What? On a day like this? Wait, what did you need from me? What was it again, Mom?
I don't know. What was it?
What? If there's nothing, I'm going home.
You came all this way. Stay a bit longer.
At that moment, my parents seemed desperate to keep me there. Eventually, more time passed, and the clock struck 5.
It's snowing quite hard now. Maybe you can't go back. Should you call Tom just in case?
Eh? Well, you might not be able to return home.
Then, I'll do that.
As my father suggested, I called Tom. Tom quickly ended the call, saying it couldn't be helped. But I had a strange feeling of unease. When I called earlier, it sounded like there was noise coming from somewhere else. Once the thought crossed my mind, I couldn't stop worrying.
Sorry, I'm actually going to head back. Oh, is that so? Well, if you must. Be careful. Yeah.
Outside, it seemed about 5 centimeters of snow had already accumulated. Shivering from the cold, I hurried home.
I'm back.
The moment I opened the front door, I sensed something was off. I found women's shoes that clearly weren't mine. I immediately knew he had brought a woman home. Then, hearing voices from the bedroom upstairs, I headed straight for the door.
Wait a minute. That's too sudden. You like this, don't you? She wouldn't do this for you. Don't say that, sis. Call me by my name, like you always do. Besides, you've never called me sister-in-law, have you?
At that moment, I realized that Tom's partner was indeed my sister Amelia. A rage boiled within me, and I pinched my hand to calm the urge to burst in.
I need to keep my cool.
I took out my smartphone and started recording the conversation. I never would have guessed that she was the other woman. Their voices, indicating they were still enjoying themselves, echoed throughout the house.
But why did you choose this house today? Because it's more exciting, and we haven't seen each other recently.
That's true, but we usually meet at our parents' place.
We've been careful not to get caught before. Well, she's so clueless she never noticed.
You're right about that. She'd never imagine us doing this.
Such a fool. I understood why I hadn't noticed their affair until now. I never imagined they were meeting secretly at our parents' house. I had suspected their relationship, but thought it impossible for them to do such a thing in a place with our parents. That's why the investigation I requested showed nothing unusual. Still, thinking it would serve as evidence, I continued to record. I wondered what our parents would think if they heard this. I had to do it to keep my sanity. I thought about confronting them, but my feet wouldn't move. Entering would mean seeing them in the act, which I instinctively didn't want to see.
Hey, when are you going to give me a child? No, that would be bad. Your husband would find out, right? It's okay. If you sleep with him later, he won't suspect a thing. He's so oblivious. What a terrible wife. Not as bad as you. Plus, he won't be back until tomorrow. Meeting up is going to be hard, so it's okay, right? All right.
Listening to their conversation made my head ache and brought on nausea. I was at my limit. I decided to call out to my husband.
Where are you?
Realizing my presence, they seemed to panic and I heard the sound of a window opening. They probably tried to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst decision they could make. Well, that was a mistake. I slowly entered the room. Clothes were scattered everywhere. They had gone outside completely naked. Looking out, I saw them trying to hide at the edge, curled up small. I immediately locked the door. Now, I was thinking about what kind of punishment to give them. I left the bedroom and went downstairs. Heading to the kitchen, I slowly made coffee. After finishing the coffee, I returned to the bedroom. While looking towards the balcony and sipping my coffee, they knocked on the window.
Open this up. I'm going to freeze to death out here.
Of course, I ignored all such nonsense. Then, I had a good idea. I picked up my smartphone and made a call. First to my parents and Tom's parents, saying it was an emergency and somehow got them to come over. The last person was my brother-in-law, Samuel. I remembered he was supposed to return today.
It was good timing. I was about to contact you. Oh, really? Are you at home? Yes, I am. Did you call because something happened?
Yes, actually. I thought revealing everything now would spoil the surprise.
So, I should come to your house, right? Yes, to my house. I just arrived at the station, so I'll be there soon. See you.
With that, all the pieces were in place. The only thing that puzzled me was Samuel's reaction. It was as if he understood too well what was happening here. Since I couldn't figure it out, I decided to wait for everyone to arrive. Our parents arrived, and I asked them to wait in the living room. 10 minutes later, Samuel arrived.
Sorry, I'm late. The roads were jammed with this snow. No, it's fine. Please, this way.
And so, the family gathered in the living room.
What's the emergency? We rushed here through the snow.
Are we going to talk about it now?
It's about the two who aren't here. It's understandable if Amelia isn't here, but Tom seems to be missing.
That's right. Would you come with me?
I led everyone to the bedroom.
What is this? Look over there.
Pointing towards the balcony, the naked duo was staring back at us.
What's going on?
Thinking it was too dangerous to leave them out any longer, I unlocked the door.
I thought I was going to die. Can we get something warm, please?
I threw blankets at the two.
Someone had better explain what this is about.
My father, blood rushing to his head, looked ready to explode.
The two were having an affair.
My sister, looking up at Samuel in shock, asked,
Why are you here?
I came back from my business trip today.
That can't be. You told me you were coming back tomorrow.
I had heard it was today. After all, Samuel was here. Confusion set in. Then Samuel began to explain the truth.
I had predicted something like this might happen and had been planning accordingly. Lying to you was part of the plan.
Samuel looked at me. Sorry, Emma. I had to use you too.
Huh?
According to my brother-in-law, Samuel, he had asked our parents for cooperation. That's why I was suddenly told to come to my parents' house. It was Samuel's instruction that my father kept me there.
So, you knew about their relationship?
No, it was just a suspicion. I couldn't believe it when Emma reported it to me.
I'm sorry.
I never thought they would do such a thing at my parents' house.
In hindsight, when my father broke his leg and needed care, Tom was eager to volunteer first.
Well, let's leave the explanations at that and think about what to do with these fools who fell for the trap.
The two kept their heads down, unwilling to talk. So, I decided to let everyone listen to the recording.
If you don't want to talk, I'll make it so you can. What are you planning to do?
This.
When I played the recording, the voices of the two filled the bedroom, clearly indicating what they had been doing.
Stop it! You're not in a position to say that. Listen to it all.
Everyone's look turned to contempt.
What a joke. You are no longer part of this family. Perhaps it was a mistake to pour so much love into you. Don't ever show your face here again.
See? Tom looked like he was about to cry but desperately bowed his head to my parents-in-law, me, and my father.
I never thought she was that kind of woman. I noticed you were hung up on Tom, but I genuinely loved you. I felt the same way too. Hey! Who said you could talk?
Hatred filled Samuel's eyes. The intensity was almost enough to make one cry.
So, what will you two do now? What do you think?
Well, divorce is certain. And then there's the matter of compensation.
Should we throw them outside again? Hearing this, the two made their last stand.
The root cause is you being busy with work and not paying attention to me. That's no excuse for having an affair. If you're going to argue, make it logical. You're just exposing your stupidity. Or should I say, it's already exposed.
My sister couldn't utter a word.
Anything else you want to say? Monkey? I was just led astray by Amelia. Really? Blaming me? You were all in. You even invited me to a hotel that time. That time? When we went shopping together. Ah.
I remembered there was such an incident during Oban. Everything must have started from there.
I just wanted to ask, why did you lure Tom? I was just irritated to see you looking so happy. I've always struggled with men.
So, you were jealous because the man you used to like ended up with me.
That's right. How stupid. This monkey isn't worth it. Maybe you should face reality.
All I could do was laugh.
That's enough. Being involved with these people will only make us stupid.
Let's all go. Wait, please. Don't talk to me so casually.
We slowly closed the bedroom door behind us. The snow outside was getting stronger. Staying here wasn't an option, so we headed to the nearest house, our home. On the way, I couldn't help but wonder what would become of the two who were now ostracized by the family. My parents-in-law stayed the night and left the next day. Then, they apologized again and declared that Tom would from now on be a stranger to them.
Shall we go?
Yes. Together, we went to consult about the divorce and compensation. Having the recording made the process much easier. We were able to get the divorce quickly and file for compensation. And today was the day Samuel moved out of the family home.
Thank you for everything.
You were like a son to us. It'll be lonely. Indeed.
If it weren't for this, you two should have gotten married. Stop it, please.
During such a peaceful time, those two showed up. And for some reason, Tom had shaved his head, perhaps as a sign of repentance. Which was so ridiculous I almost laughed.
What are you doing here?
Then, both of them apologized deeply at the same time.
We've been disowned by our parents. You're the only one we can turn to now, Emma. Please. I thought I told you never to show your faces here again. My dad's right. Besides, we're divorced now. In other words, we're strangers. If you understand, then leave quickly.
But they still wouldn't give up.
Even if you do this, it's just a nuisance. Stop showing us such a disgraceful sight. I can't stand to watch any longer.
Then, Samuel offered his hand to Amelia.
Are you going to help?
Watching this, I was nervous.
Help? What misunderstanding do you have? I just wanted you to move because you're in the way.
Trying not to laugh at Amelia's stunned face was a struggle. My stomach started to hurt from holding in the laughter. So, that's the situation. You better go back home.
It looks like my dad's at his limit.
My father was standing with his arms crossed, looking somewhat proud. Seeing this, the two scurried away like fleeing animals.
Finally gone, huh? Then, I'll be off too.
You can come over whenever you like, you know. Since that incident, I've been living at my parents' house. Also, I've kept in touch with Samuel, and we occasionally go out for drinks. What the future holds, I'm not sure, but I'm certain it will be enjoyable.